Hello everyone, Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. It is Sunday. The day is finally here. I hope you're well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. Thank you as always for joining me. I really do appreciate it. As I said, the day is finally here. Not much more to be said, is it? Arsenal's Premier League season 2025-26. We go again. It all begins a little bit later on today up in Manchester at Old Trafford. Manchester United versus Arsenal. They don't come much bigger than that when it comes to season openers. So we're going to talk about that. Of course we are in today's show. We're going to look at who's travelled, who's in the travelling squad, some interesting bits to talk about there in terms of who's gone and who hasn't gone to Manchester for this one with the squad. We're going to look at predicted 11s from both sides. Talk a little bit about Eberechi Eze as the sort of Spurs thing continues to rumble on as well. So there's lots to get stuck into today. But we'll start with the squad. Now, Mikel Arteta's obviously had some big decisions to make this week in terms of who goes, who is going to be involved in Manchester, because he's got a big squad at the moment. It's bursting at the seams. Some players need to go, obviously. And there was always a lot of debate leading up to this game about, okay, who's going to make it? Who's going to be in the 11? Who's going to be on the bench? But who's not even going to play? You know, who's not going to be involved at all? There was always going to be some decisions. Now, we seem to have been given a pretty good indication of that now, because the travelling squad, I can reveal players who have gone, and there are videos doing the rounds where you can see this of the squad arriving in Manchester. And so these are the players, certainly judging by what we've seen arriving at the team hotel, these are the players who have gone. So the goalkeepers are Raya, Kepa and Setford. Defenders who have travelled, Calafiori, Lewis Skelly, Gabriel, Saliba, Mosquera, Timber and White. Midfielders who have travelled, Zubamendi, Rice, Marino, Odegaard. And then forwards who have travelled, Trossard, Martinelli, Madueke, Saka, Nwaneri and Dauman. And then Havertz and Gyökeres as the strikers. So I think that is 22 players have gone is in the travelling squad, which obviously you get 11 on the bench, 11 on the team, 9 on the bench. So that leaves 2 players who are probably not going to be involved. You imagine Setford's going to be one of them. And probably Dauman, I would think. You know, Dauman's gone as the extra man, you would think, attacking man. Maybe not. We'll have to wait and see on that. Maybe Trossard gets left out. Who knows? But those are the players that have travelled. So Raya, Kepa, Setford, Calafiori, Lewis Skelly, Gabriel, Saliba, Mosquera, Timber, White, Zubamendi, Rice, Marino, Odegaard, Trossard, Martinelli, Madueke, Saka, Dauman, Nwaneri, and then Havertz and Gyökeres. So from that, players who have not gone, who have not travelled, Kivior, Norgard, Zinchenko, Sambi, Vieira, Nelson, all those players have not gone. And look, maybe the videos didn't capture everyone, but it seemed like it did. And we saw the squad arriving at a train station to go to Manchester, and we saw the squad arriving in Manchester. And certainly there was no sign on those of Kivior, Norgard, Zinchenko, Sambi, Vieira, Nelson. Now, Norgard, you would think, is probably down to injury, I would say, from that. Although, to be honest, looking at the options Arsenal have in midfield, you know, Zubamendi's going to play as a 6. You know, Rice could even play there. I mean, they're going to play as double pivot anyway, if last week's anything to go by. Maybe it's not injury. I'd imagine it is an injury. Kivior's the interesting one, obviously. I talked about this on yesterday's show, and I got a little bit of grief in the comments. And what I was saying in yesterday's show, I wasn't saying that I would personally absolutely leave Kivior out, but I was saying I wouldn't be surprised if he gets left out because of the options that Arsenal already have and who have gone. We've seen Mosquera, in my view, from what we've seen in pre-season, definitely ahead of Kivior in the pecking order now already. Calafiori, it seems to be first choice when it comes to left-sided centre-back cover if he's fit. We saw that at the start of pre-season. He's travelled. And so I think Arsenal was stocked well enough that I wouldn't have been surprised if Arteta kept Kivior out. Plus, there is still a couple of weeks left on in the transfer window. And again, I wouldn't 100% rule out the potential for Kiwior going. And the fact he's not been included in this squad, maybe that suggests that there is a strong possibility of that happening, and something potentially already is happening behind the scenes. So really interesting, I think, in terms of who's gone and who's not. I mean, Zinchenko, no great surprise. Again, we know with the window still open, there's quite a high chance of Arsenal certainly allowing something to happen. Whether Zinchenko allows it to happen, again, we'll have to wait and see on that. You know, Sambi, we know definitely Arsenal are trying to move on. Vieira, again, same situation. Reece Nelson, again, same situation. So those ones aren't the big surprise. I think the big ones, definitely, maybe you'd put Kiwior in that, and we'll wait and see. If this is right and Norgard hasn't travelled, then it'll be interesting to see exactly why that hasn't happened, whether that's just a decision taken by Arteta or whether that is more down to injury. I don't think I've seen him in training pictures this week, Norgard. Someone might correct me in that in the comments, but I don't think we have seen him in those, which might suggest that there is some sort of injury. So those are the squads. Those are the players who have travelled for today's game. Let's talk about predicted 11. So this is what I think, and I've ummed and ahed about this a fair while, trying to work out what I think Arteta's going to do today. And this is what I've gone for. The big thing, I was really undecided. And again, this isn't exactly what I would go for. This is what I'm trying to predict what Mikel's going to go for. And the left back had me changing my opinion. I was like, he's going to start Calafiori. No, he's going to go back to Lewis Skelly. And I was flicking between the two. And I've gone for Lewis Skelly in the end. I think he might well start with Lewis Skelly. Even though Calafiori played last week, played well, I don't think Lewis Skelly's had the best of pre-seasons. But yeah, I just kind of fallen back on, you know, Arteta loves Miles. He trusts him completely. And so I've gone with that. But again, I would not be at all surprised if it's Calafiori at left back. So that was the one that I was really struggling with. But the rest of it, I think, pretty much picks itself. You know, I think White's just ahead of Timber at the moment in terms of fitness more than anything else. So I think he's going to get the nod, and I think he's had a very good pre-season. So I think Arteta's going to go Raya in goal, obviously. I've gone for a back four of White, Saliba, Gabriel, and Lewis Skelly. But again, I wouldn't be surprised if that's Calafiori. I'm going with the Rice Zubimendi kind of double pivot that we saw last week. It might end up being more of a 4-3-3, what we've become accustomed to with Arsenal, with Zubimendi sitting as a lone six and Rice playing further up at, sort of alongside Martin Odegaard. But certainly what we saw last week in the game against Athletic was Miles much more of a double pivot than we'd seen previously when it comes to Arsenal midfield. So that's what I'm going for today. Rice and Zubimendi playing pretty close together again in the heart of that midfield in front of the back four. Odegaard then having a little bit more space ahead of him to drift across the pitch. So maybe more as a 10 than an out-and-out right 8, but I'm sure most of his play will be on the right and the right 8 position. And you know, Rice and even if it's Lewis Skelly or Calafiori will get up and support the left-hand side of midfield the way they do when they invert. So Zubimendi, Rice and Odegaard's midfield. Then up front, I've gone Saka, Gyökeres and Martinelli. Again, I wouldn't be shocked if it's Havertz, because it's Havertz and it's Mikel Arteta, and Mikel Arteta loves Havertz, and Havertz came off the bench and scored a great goal last weekend. And so I wouldn't be absolutely stunned, but I think he's probably going to go with Gyökeres. I think that injury that Havertz had, the little one, has just opened the door to Gyökeres. I think he's pushed that door open. I think he started the last 2 games with this team, with these players. They're beginning to adjust to him. Scored last week, got a bit of momentum behind him. I think Mikel will look to use that. And I think that's probably swung his opinion towards Gyökeres. So that's my Arsenal predicted 11 for today's game. Raya, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Lewis Skelly, Zubimendi, Rice, Odegaard, Saka, Gyökeres and Martinelli. Right, before I get onto the Manchester United predicted 11, I will pop on. I'm not going to the game today. I'm watching it at my dad's house, and I will record something after the game. You know, immediate match reaction, player ratings, that sort of thing. So keep your eyes peeled for that, and come back to this channel after the game if you want to see my views on hopefully what's going to be a good Arsenal win to start the season. Let me know your thoughts on it, of course, and I'll pull some of them together and get them included in tomorrow's much more in-depth reaction show. So looking at what Manchester United might well do, how they might well set up today in that sort of 3-4-3 Ruben Amorim formation that we know he loves. So looking at that, this could well be what United go for. This is what some of their reporters up in Manchester are predicting from Amorim. So Onana comes back and goes in goal. They think that's probably going to happen. De Ligt at the heart of the defence. They've gone Euro and then Aiden Heaven, obviously former Arsenal player, in there. Could well play Luke Shaw as a left-sided centre-back, but he likes Heaven, and I've got a feeling he'll play Heaven as well. So De Ligt, Euro and Heaven as the centre-backs. Ugarte and Fernandes They've gone for in midfield, so no Casemiro. We'll wait and see if that's correct. Ahmad on the right, Dorgu on the left as sort of wing-back positions that they play. Then Mbeumo and Kuna behind Sesko. So that's what they're predicting for today. And when you look at that, obviously the threat for United is going to come from that new front three that they've had. Sesko's going straight into the side, which is no great surprise considering the options they've got up front at the moment. He's had a week training with his new teammates. Obviously, he's going to have a big point to prove against Arsenal, a team I'm pretty sure he felt he would have been joining at some point in the last couple of years. Didn't happen. He might well want to prove a point. Where I'm sure he will want to prove a point. We're going to have that whole Sesko Gyökeres narrative today. But you look at where that threat's going to come from. You look at that right-hand side, Ahmad and Mbeumo, that's strong, it's dangerous. There's goals there. There's pace there. And the fullbacks are going to have to be very, very solid at Arsenal, whether that's going to be Calafiori, whether that's going to be Lewis Skelly. Again, I think he's probably going to go for Lewis Skelly, but we'll wait and see. And Rice and Odegaard are going to have to be very hot on that side, I would say, to counter the threat. Cunha and Dorgo as well over on that side. There is threat from United, and we know all about Fernandes and how well he can play and how he can score from any sort of position. So there is threat there from United. They're going to be up for it. It's the first game of the season. It's going to be very, very difficult for Arsenal, no doubt about that. But you just hope, I think I still look in that midfield position, those midfield areas. And I think if Arsenal can get on top, whether it's Ugarte, whether it's Casemiro, if Arsenal can get on top in that midfield battle and stop the supply line out wide to the flanks, and I think Arsenal got a very good chance of seizing control of this game and hopefully going on and winning it. So, that's what the predicted 11 for Manchester United is saying. Onana, Yoro, De Ligt, Heaven, Ugarte, Fernandes, Ahmad, Dorgu, Mbeumo, Cunha, and Sesko. Well, it was a fun day in the Premier League yesterday. Not so fun watching the Aston Villa Newcastle game. Fortunately, I didn't do that, but talking to some of my mates who did, it wasn't exactly a banging game to get the day off and running. But there was goals elsewhere. Sunderland, great win for them. Wow, West Ham look in trouble. West Ham needs some reinforcements very, very quickly before this transfer window closes, because they do not look very well equipped for this season. If I was a West Ham fan, I would be a little bit worried. Tottenham beating Burnley 3-0 as expected. A tough start back to life in the Premier League for Burnley. Couple of goals for Richarlison there. Great second goal for him. Bicycle kick. Reminded me of that goal he scored for Brazil in the World Cup in Qatar, actually. Man City, I didn't see. The only part of this game I saw was when it was at 0-0 and Wolves were actually looking a little bit threatening there. The goal disallowed for offside. Looked like they were getting in down the right-hand side a little bit. And I was quite encouraged by what I was seeing. But then I turned the game off, had stuff to do, turned back, and it was 3-0. Haaland had scored 2. It's like, well, normal service resumed. So Man City sitting top of the Premier League at the moment after that with 4 goals. Just nicking ahead of Spurs and Sunderland. Fulham nicking a very, very late point at Brighton. And then we wait and see what happens today. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Come on, the Arsenal. We can get up and running in good fashion. Right, before I wrap this one up for today, just on Eberechi shares, there's been lots of reports in the last 24 hours that Spurs are really moving ahead now with their move to sign him. It looks like that is absolutely going to happen. There were reports that he was out of the Palace squad for today's game because of how close that move is. Those reports now don't seem to be correct. I think he is going to be involved. He's never said to Palace, I don't want to play, anything like that. And now it doesn't look like anything's imminent in terms of Spurs, as in, it's going to happen in the next 24 hours. So it looks like he will potentially be playing for Palace in what you would imagine will be his last game for them today. No sign of Arsenal moving for Eze. Doesn't look like they're going to rival Spurs for this one. It looks like Spurs are getting a free run at him. Disappointing, certainly disappointing for me. I wanted Eze, always wanted Eze. It's not going to be fun watching him in a Spurs shirt, but we'll wait and see. I've had people saying to me, what are we going to do? If he's going, are we going to sign someone else? Are we going to sign in left wing? I don't know at this stage, unfortunately. I'd love to sit here and say, this is why they're not signing Eze, because they're going to go out and do this. I just don't know at this moment. Again, there's so much depends, I think, on what Arsenal can do in terms of shifting players on in the next week or so. And that might allow them to make a late move in the market before the window shuts. But it doesn't look at this stage, and you can never say never when it comes to football. Of course you can't, but it doesn't look at this stage that Arsenal are going to be trying to muscle in and stop Eze moving to Spurs. So I think we're all going to have to accept, unfortunately, that he is not going to be playing for the correct North London club next season. I hope Arsenal still go out and do a little bit of business and improve on that left-hand side of the pitch, whether it be an out-and-out left winger or whether it be a player more in the mould of Eze. We'll wait and see on that. I hope they can do it. I think they need to do it. But again, I think it's also sort of interlinked with what's going on with selling players at the moment and trying to reduce the size of the squad. That is just taking preference right now. So that's it for today. Well, not for today, because I'll be back later on to do hopefully a nice review show of a good 3 points for Arsenal at Old Trafford. Wherever you're watching the game, if you're going, if you're listening to this on the way up to Old Trafford, be loud, back the boys, create that atmosphere. Only the Arsenal away fans can. If you're watching at home or anywhere else around the world, enjoy it. Football's back. Let's cross our fingers. Let's hope we can get off to a good start. I'll be back after the game to review it and give my player ratings. So keep your eyes peeled for that. Come back to the channel. Until then, enjoy the rest of your day up till kickoff. Speak to you soon, everyone. Come on, the Arsenal. Bye-bye.